Hello, all my JavaScript friends. This is TheVirtuoid, aka Mike Smith, and this is our Hold the Tower game. Today we're going to be taking a look at the tower. And the tower, well, let me show you exactly what the tower does. I'm going to press F5 over here. We're going to flip over to full screen. And the tower is what you see in the middle there. It's the grayish blob. I'll get better graphics later. It also controls what guns are currently inside the tower. And it controls what runners are inside the tower. So anything having to do with the amount of guns we have on the screen or the number of runners we have out there is all controlled by the tower. And of course it will take damage once a monster gets to the tower itself. So let's take a look at the code. Code is very, 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 very simple. We've got a couple of default values here: rotational speed, max health, things like that. I do, as what is normal for me, I keep absolutely everything inside private variables and only expose these variables on an as-needed basis in order to try to keep the possibilities of any kind of damage done to these classes at a bare minimum. Why do we do that? Because it's just me? I don't know, because it's the way it is. We have a preload. All of our classes have a preload. Our graphics program, Phaser.js, has a preload method on it that basically tells us to be able to say, hey, I need to be able to load up a bunch of graphics. And for instance, let me just bring up the gameplay scene here and show that to you. Yeah, here it is right here. This is the preload we have for the entire scene, and it's calling, the ground, the tower, the enemy, and all that. And this allows us to preload all of our different graphics. And we're using graphics from the tower, the runner, and the gun. Those are the three graphics we use. And so we have preload methods on all of our different classes to grab in all of those different graphics for us. The constructor is very, very simple. Got default towers. We initially give you one runner. We initially also give you one gun. Now, one thing I have done on each and every single one of these classes is that this is, let me show you my construction real quick of how I've got the system constructed, or how I've got the directories constructed here. I've got my source directory and I've got my classes. And each one of my classes here represents basically different objects within the game. Like for instance, here's the different tower. But also there is a UI directory here which controls all the different UI aspects of the game. For instance, the tower has its own little UI. And what I have done, let me close that back out, is that each one of these classes has a UI associated with it, and I create within a variable called UI the UI section or the UI part that represents the graphical interface we use for Phaser.js. And I have done this so that the game itself will only communicate with the tower but never communicate with the graphics. And that will allow me, let's say, for instance, I find something better than Phaser.js, or if I want to implement my own Phaser.js or my own graphics, then I can sit there and just replace the stuff inside Tower UI. I don't have to worry about anything else. I just got to make sure I can support everything else within the tower. This is called obfuscation. It's a particular factory pattern or it's a particular design pattern that allows us to be able to not have to worry about what graphics we're having to use, or not have to worry about what the external factors are. All my game worries about is how do I run the game itself. I don't care about the graphics, just the game. Each of the individual objects will care about the graphics, and so on and so forth. That's all that really is. We do have a defensive wall. That was part of the original specifications, but I decided, mostly for time, not to implement the defensive wall in this particular version. Now, maybe when we do phase 2 of this game sometime next year or so, we will actually implement the defensive wall. And of course, I give you one gun. No big deal for default damage start. In reality, the damage has absolutely nothing to do with it, as we'll find out when we get to the gun class. I have getter routines for each one of my private variables that I know I have to get access to, and this allows me to basically not allow an outside class to be able to change these variables unless I specifically allow them to change it. In this case, I have just a getter method for health. You cannot change health unless you call some other routines, which we'll see here in just a minute. Same thing with max health, the guns, the runners, the defensive wall, the rotation speed of the turret, the UI. This is some convenience factors. There's a lot of times where if you, for instance, where the gun needs to figure out where it's going to be placed upon the tower and as it rotates around the tower, or where the runners need to start from the middle of the tower, or when the enemies get into the middle of the tower, they need to know where the middle of the tower is. And I don't know that from a tower perspective, but the graphics portion, the UI portion of the tower does know that. So I have a number of convenience getters here, like for instance X, Y, and radius, that returns values straight from the graphical version of the tower. And so then again, that allows my calling program to say, hey, give me the X value of your tower. Now, I don't care what graphics program I'm using. I don't care if I'm in a 3D space. I'm going to get that X value. What's the radius of the tower? Well, I'll get that radius. I'm not storing that radius. I'm storing it into the graphics section. I don't care about the graphics. Same thing with the image, and this is the raw image itself. A couple of routines to take note of is the take damage section. This is again where we've used the defensive wall, and that just returns, hey, your damage is your damage. I make absolutely certain that the damage never goes above 0, and if it does go above 0, I emit an event. And the game event method, class, which we'll go through also at a later point in time. In fact, this is a kind of a shows you how it is. These are all the different events that I have within the game, and it has a specific static routine that fires off the events using Phaser.js's event emitter within the scene. If I ever to create my own event handlers, I would then go into game event and change the event handlers here within game event, and that means I don't have to change this at all. And again, I'm obfuscating away the events. I've obfuscated away the UI. I've obfuscated away the events. But this is just basically saying, hey, if the health equals to 0 on the tower, then I've got to emit a game over and then let them do whatever they have to do. Allows me to set the maximum health. If the maximum health just for some reason goes below the initial health, I do change the initial health or the health back down to where it can never go above the max health. There's where I can actually set the physical health itself to any particular number. It will never go above max health, which is what this math min does. Turret rotation speed, upgrade maximum health. This basically allows me to do an incremental upgrade of the maximum health and an incremental upgrade of the health itself. Defense wall, again, we're not doing. Here's where we add a runner. Really complicated piece of code here. We create the runner and we push them. That's it. We don't do anything else, and then the runner's created. Everything else is taken care of by the events and is taken care of by what we call a runner group, which, again, we'll get to in another video. Upgrade the runner hit points. We don't have this implemented for this particular version of the game, but you are able, the monsters or the enemies will be able to kill the runners or to get rid of them. But in this particular case, we don't worry about that. Runner speed, this is where we upgrade the speed for the runners. And then finally, this is where we add the gun. And that's it. The tower does nothing else. The UI of the tower is extraordinarily simple. This is basically how the UI itself, and the only thing I really pass to it is the scene. The preload is what's very important, and the create is what's very important. This create section here. Each one of my UIs have a preload static, and it has a create function. And this create is what actually builds the physical graphical objects by using, in this particular case, the Phaser.js scene routines for creating whatever I have to create. In this case, I'm just adding an image, and I'd be adding rectangles, text, whatever, depending upon the situation. And that is pretty much it. There really is nothing else to the tower. It's a very simple little program here. By the way, here's all my unit tests. We got quite a lot of unit tests, and in actuality, as I was going through this earlier today, I was sitting there going, I need to add a few more unit tests to this thing. But I try to do unit tests to get everything covered. It's got that done. Tower type is something that if I want to have different towers, I can have different tower types. Right now, they're really not there, but this kind of allows me to predefine what the tower is going to look like. And in this case, here's the image I'm using. Here's the radius, the scaling I use. And this is all used by the UI tower when we do the create program down, when we do the create system down here. And that will conclude the tower class. Thanks for watching. Subscribe to this channel to view more videos. Click on the like button on this video and visit us at TheVirtuoid.com. Also, support us on Patreon, where you can get access to member-only videos. Links are down below. Again, thank you very much for watching, and keep on coding.